What is the core? This is what people think it is, or maybe it's what people would like it to be, if we're all honest. That's kind of what we want. But this is a very good example of one element of your core working really, really well. And you can see on the lady, the six-pack muscles at the front, they're working brilliantly. But it's not an example of how good her core strength is because you can't see that in a photo. This is your core. And there's a few things that you need to know about this. The orange section is your rectus abdominals. That's the six-pack. That's what you can see in the lady. Now the rectus abdominals are responsible for forwards flexion, so sit-ups. So that lady has been doing a lot of sit-ups because she's got that core, she's got that definition. She's also very, very slim. So she's got very low body fat, which means they stand out. So everyone has this, but most people's don't stand out. So that's your rectus abdominis. That's a functional muscle. It's also quite superficial. It's got nothing really to do with holding you up or changing your pain or your pelvic floor or anything like that. Your internal and external obliques are the blue ones, and they are responsible for twisting you and your side flexion. Again, great to have, but a little bit superficial. They're not going to really do a huge amount for you. Then we've got your lower back muscles, which I quite like this picture. If you can see down the bottom here, this is why I like this picture, that they've included these spinal erectors. So your lower back is part of your core. If you imagine your core like a tin can, your muscles span around the outside. You need your lower back to be strong. The problem we have is where the lower back becomes too strong and there's nothing else happening. So it's holding you up, and that's where you're getting that lower back pain where you're walking or standing for too long. Lower back's doing everything, but the core's not really doing very much. So those are your kind of functional muscles. They move you, they're dynamic. But what we really want when we're working on our core are the deeper muscles. Now, we all start our lives with very strong transverse abdominals, the yellow ones. We all start that way. But when we have core trauma or pregnancies or menopause, all of those muscles start to weaken. So the transverse abdominals are like the corset that sit underneath all the others, and they're the ones that are holding you up. They're also the ones that tend to be the weakest because they tend to have had a bit of a battering over the years, and we're just not really switched on with them. Then we've got the pelvic floor, which is at the bottom there. Most of you will be au fait with your pelvic floor, maybe not knowing how to find it, but you'll know what it is. It's the sling of muscle that supports your organs and sits in the base of the pelvis. And then you've got, probably most importantly, but I bet you haven't associated it, your diaphragm. So when you breathe, you're impacting your pelvic floor and all the other muscles. So you inhale and everything opens and broadens and kind of relaxes a little bit. And then you exhale and everything tightens. So as that diaphragm pulls up, so does the pelvic floor at the bottom. Think of that as the bottom of your tin can. That pulls up too, and then everything tightens into center. So without a decent breath control, if you're asthmatic or you've had COVID or your posture's not good, without a decent filling and emptying of the lungs with your diaphragm, you're not going to get a decent switch on. So over time, these things start to become a bit restricted, particularly posturally. If you're sitting at a desk for long periods of time, particularly then, people start to feel quite restricted through the front of the body and their breath is impacted. And that is going to have an impact on all of these muscles. So what I'd like to do is take you through a practical session, and